So for this example, a particle moves along a horizontal path with a velocity of v is equal to 3t squared minus 60 meters per second, where t is the time in seconds. And if it is initially located at the origin, determine the distance traveled in 3.5 seconds. And also, we need to determine the particle's average velocity and average speed during the time interval. So you have the um, at the right side, it shows already the answers. So the distance traveled of the particle is actually the total distance traveled, that is st, 14.125 meters. And the average velocity is 1.75 meters per second, and the average speed is 4.04 meters per second. Average velocity and average speed are different. Okay? So I discussed that before na. Say difference aning average velocity and average speed. So let us solve this problem. So ang different lang aning problem sa previous problems na itong gidiscuss is that wala siya'y wala siya'y figure given. So what we need is we need to draw an illustration based on the given in our problem. So we need to analyze the motion of the particle itself based on the um, based on the givens based on the givens for this problem mismo. So just a solution for this one, the first natong pangitaon is the total distance traveled by the particle. Okay, so solution. Okay. So since wala siya figure or illustration, kitang mag-draw to determine the to describe rather the motion of the particle. So mentioned here that the particle moves along a horizontal path. So we need to draw a horizontal line to represent the horizontal path of the particle. So we have a horizontal path here. So I just draw a horizontal line. And then after we draw the horizontal line is we locate the origin. So for the origin for this one, any portion on the horizontal path. Okay? So pwede nasa center, nasa kilid, doesn't matter. Basta we establish the origin. So for this one, we consider at the center or within the center as the origin. So I represent that with the letter O. And diri nag-start ang atong particle sa origin. Okay? Why we draw the horizontal path sa atong particle? Because we didn't know manggod kung asa siya nag-move. If it goes to the left or if it goes to the right. Wala mang good state sa problem, 'di ba? It wala man state sa problem if it is moving to the left or right ang atong particle. Ang gingon ra man gud dire moves along a horizontal path with a velocity, then it is initially located at the origin. So mo na tong gibuhat. So this would be the coordinate system sa atong particle. After we establish its coordinate system, the next thing that we will do is to answer the following questions. So the first one is the distance traveled in 3.5 seconds. So the distance traveled in 3.5 seconds is not the um like the um position na position S na tong kailangan i-identify, but it is actually the total distance the distance traveled, the total distance covered by the particle within the time interval na 3.5 seconds. So it means that pila ang distance na gi-covered sa particle starting from the origin going to the final time na 3.5 seconds. So this one is represented with the variable st. So that would be st. That is the total distance traveled in 3.5 for the 3.5 seconds na time interval. And ang given man gud diri sa tong equation is the equation for the velocity that is 3t squared minus 60. So that is v is equal to 3t squared minus 60. What we need is the position. We cannot identify the position using this given um, function of velocity sa itong particle. So we need to convert that into a um, position, or we need to convert this equation that describes the position sa to ang particle. So we need to use the three kinematic equations that I mentioned before sa mga previous na mga example problems. So three the three kinematic equations were v is equal to ds over dt, have also a is equal to dv over dt, and lastly is ads is equal to vdv. And di ba pag pili sa tulo ka kinematic equation, depende kung say given, so natay velocity and the time, which was the 3.5 seconds. So natay time given, 3.5 seconds. And also the unknown is the position S. So which among the three kinematic equations based on the given ang atong gamiton? Is it the first, the second, or the third kinematic equation? The first, okay. So it is the first kinematic equation because the first kinematic equation describes these three variables, the v, t, and s. So we will use the first kinematic equation. So that would be v is equal to ds over dt. And we will substitute the equivalent of velocity, that is 3t squared minus 6t is equal to ds over dt. So you cross multiply, so you cross multiply or multiply the 3t squared minus 60 with dt. So what happens here? We have ds is equal to 3t squared minus 60 dt. So before we uh, for us to solve this equation, ang atong ma-apply is integration for us to remove the d because naka-differential pa man na nga to ang position. So we need to integrate this one. We integrate each side sa tong equation. And di ba kung mag-integrate ka, it could be definite or indefinite integral. So you can choose or you can apply using either indefinite or definite integral. So just a recap, kung indefinite, mao tong na plus c. Kung definite is na kay upper and lower limits. So in this case, I will use the definite para mas dali and then diretso na to ma-identify ang koan, ang equation, ang function mismo for the position. Dili na ta mag-solve sa constant c. So we will use definite integral for this one. So for the definite integral, that is ds, integral of ds is equal to integral of 3t squared minus 6t dt. So for the ds, you need to write down the initial and the lower and the upper limit that represents the initial and the final position. So for the for this one, unsa man na nga to ang initial position ana? Unsay equivalent sa initial position or the lower limit for the left side sa imong equation diri sa ds? Ilang value na to? 0. 0, it's because it starts from the origin, diba? So since it starts from the origin, so therefore its initial position will be 0. So that will be 0. Then its upper limit is s. For the time, the same thing gihapon. That would be 0. Okay, it starts from the origin. And the variable here sa taas, the upper limit here sa taas rather is the variable t. Dili na to i-substitute directly ang 3.5 because ang atong ma-come up is ang position lang for the time na 3.5 seconds. So what we need to achieve is the function or the equation sa position at any time. Eh kung 3.5 ang imong isulat diri sa upper limit sa time, ang imong ma-come up is ang value sa position for the time equal 3.5 seconds. Di na to ma-describe, di na to ma-achieve ang unsa ang description sa motion sa atong particle. So for this one, this is integral of the s. That is s, 0s. This is integral of 3t squared. That is 3t cubed over 3 minus 6t squared over 2, 0t. So by substituting the upper and lower limits, upper minus the lower, so that is s minus 0, so that would be s. Here in the right side, the same thing, upper minus the lower, so cancel out naman ng 3. Kaning 6 over 2 is 3t squared na siya. So that would be t cubed minus 3t squared. So this is the function or the equation of the position at any time. Mao na tong gamiton for us to describe the motion of your particle. Okay, so just a continuation for this one. So continuation. Now let us describe the motion of our particle. So again, it moves along a horizontal path. Then it uh, it is initially located at the origin. Then kanina, um, we had this one to describe the position of your particle at any time. That is S is equal to E cube minus uh, 3T squared. Okay? Nga naman, we need to identify the function or nga naman pangitaan pa man nato ang equation sa position. Kiwa man gud ta kabalo kung asa siya nag-move. In the first place, sa problem nato, take note on this, kung napatay koan, kung nag-provide siya image or illustration like the previous na mga examples, mas dali. Pero kani manggod wa man ta kabalo manggod kung asa siya nag-move, kung nag-move ba siya left or right. So kailangan nato i-identify or i-analyze ang movement or motion sa to ang particle. So using the equation na to ang na-solve kanina, which is S is equal to T cubed minus 3T squared, mo na itong gamiton for us to describe the motion of the particle within the time interval na 3.5 seconds. So dito na itong may bawaan kung nag-move ba siya left or pa right or kung saan iyahang total distance na gitravel niya. So we will use a table for this one. So I'll just draw a table here below. So the first column is the time. Okay, at any time man nga itong i-consider. And the second column is the position. So pila biskan unsa na mga value sa time mga tong i-input. So we start with 0. Then ang interval could be by 1 basta until 3.5. Kay 3.5 man nga to ang final time. So that would be 1, 2, 3. Then the last time would be the 3.5. Okay, so we will substitute each value of time sa itong equation dire sa S is equal to 3T squared minus 3T cubed rather. S is equal to T cubed minus 3T squared. So for 0, ang position is 0. So it starts from the origin jud. Pagabot sa 1, pila man nga to ang kuan, position. Pilang value sa position nato when the time is 1 second?
Negative 2, sir.
Negative 2. So kung negative 2, kasi pasabot ana kung negative 2 ang ato ang position pag start sa 1 second. So meaning pag move pag start sa time, ibali pag move sa tong particle, negative 2 ang atong position. Asa siya nag-move first? Is it going to the left or going to the right atong kuan? It is in the left side. Eh di ba itong gidiscuss na ko before? left side indicates the negative position. Right side is the positive position. So therefore, dito na to nibawaan based on the table na nag-start siya moving to the left. So negative 2 is for time equal to 1 second. Pag time is equal to 2 seconds, pila man na nga to ang position. Sige, padayon na itong pag-substitute sa mga values. Negative 4. So, padayon gyapon siya move to the left. How about 3? 0. How about 3.5? 6.125. Di ba if you notice, during the time from 0 to 2, 0 to 2 seconds kay negative. Pag-abot sa 3 to 3.5, balik siya 0, then the positive na pod 6.125. So for this, we will use this data to analyze or to describe the motion of the particle. So first one is ang time equal to 1, that is negative 2. So the values here sa to ang horizontal path or horizontal line indicates the position, the position sa to ang particle at every time. So ang t is equal to 1, that is negative 2. So say na diri si negative 2. So na diri si particle na. So it moves to the left di. So this is t is equal to 0. T is equal to 1. Next, pag t is equal to 2 seconds, it moves to the left na pod. Tapos, ang iyahang position is negative 4. Take note ha, when we talk about position, that is measured from the origin. So ang negative 4 nimo is from 0 to the negative 4, mo na ang 4 na distance. Ang distance between the kaning part kung asa ang time is 1, this one, atong i-point out na ako sa kong laser, then to the time na equal to 2, ang distance ana nila is 2 meters. So that is what we call displacement. Pero kung position, it is from the origin going to the actual position or location sa to ang particle. So that's why kaning sa 2, it is from 0 to the negative 4. Pero kung displacement, kaning 2, say kaning sa particle during the time na 1 and during the time na 2 seconds. Next is ang location sa to ang particle for the time equal to 3 seconds. We notice that the position is 0, so nibalik siya sa origin. So nana siya dire. That is t is equal to 3 seconds. So meaning ani, If it goes to the left, then pag-abot sa time na 3 seconds, nibalik siya sa origin. So there is a change on the movement or motion sa tong particle. So it changed from left, then it goes back to the right side sa imong horizontal path. So for this one, nag-move siya going to the right na when the time is 3 seconds. Then, pag-abot sa 3.5, ang iyahang position is 6.125. So, nadiri ang final position sa imuhang particle which the time is 3.5 seconds. Then kung ipadayon nimo siya og input sa mga other values like 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth, kay padayon gyapon siya move to the right na. So mo na ang purpose nga no gingani nato kay wa magud ta kabalo at first unsang iyahang initial kanang asa siya start nag-move kung going to the left or going to the right ba nga to ang particle. Unless kung na ay figure or illustration gi-provide sa atong problem, which is wala man compare sa other example problems na gi-solve last time. So for this one, since atong gipangita is ang total distance traveled in 3.5 seconds, so when we say total distance traveled by the particle in 3.5 seconds, it doesn't mean that the 6.125 meters, which is the position sa imong particle when the time is 3.5 seconds atong answer. When we talk about distance traveled in 3.5 seconds, pila ang gitravel sa atong particle starting from the origin until the time na particle is nana siya sa time na 3.5 seconds or its final position na 3.5 seconds. So we just only what you call this sum up the total distance na gitravel sa to ang particle. So your ST is equal to this one. So pila man ang distance ani? Kanina kong gikoan, gi bracket, gi braces. Pilang distance from the origin going to the position sa tong particle at time is equal to 1. That is 2. Okay? That is 2. How about this one? Pila man lang distance ani? 2 gihapon. Pag-abot sa from the position sa imong particle na time is equal to 2 to the position sa imong particle where the time is equal to 3, pila man ang distance na na-covered ana? 4. Don't get confused sa vertical line ha, kay dili na appeal. Ang atong kailangan is the horizontal distance. So, that would be the 4. Kay 2 plus 2 is 4 man. Then lastly is from the time na 3 to the time na 3.5 seconds, that is 6.125 seconds. So, i-sum up lang nato ni 2 plus 2 plus 4 plus 6.125. So 2 plus 2 plus 6 point, sorry. plus 4 plus 6.125. So the sum is 14. Okay, that is 14.125. So this is your answer for the first question sa for this problem na distance traveled of the particle in 3.5 seconds. So it means that what is the total distance covered by the particle? Okay? Ala, nalagi kasi wala.
Wala ko ka sulod gahapon.
Okay. Distract ko. Ano, balik ra ba ni nakoan? Okay ra sa imo ha? Later
Wala
pa
ko
na.
dira, wala ko
Ah,
dira nga part ng kakuan, sir.
okay. So, that would be the what we call this, the total distance traveled. Okay? So take note ha, take note on this one. If ever walay illustration gi-provide, ikaw mismo ang mag-draw sa illustration or to describe the motion sa imong particle based sa given function nato sa atong problem. And also, don't forget the terms about unsay definition about position. Sa position, it measures from the origin going to the location sa imong particle. So ang distance travel na to ang giingon dire is the total distance traveled covered by the particle starting from the origin going to the final time na 3.5 seconds. So that is your distance traveled in 3.5 seconds. So the next question na tong i-answer is the average speed, average velocity and the average speed, okay, during the time interval. So for the average velocity, average velocity. Diba when we define average velocity, that is the displacement or delta S over the time interval. And when we talk about velocity, um, it has the direction because velocity itself is a vector. And di ba kung delta, it defines final minus the initial. So for S or the position, final position minus the initial position. The same with the time. Final time minus the initial time. So for the average velocity, that will be SF, which indicates the final position, minus the initial position, or SI. Then for the time, TF minus TI. Pila nga to ang, kung balikan nato kanina, kung tanawon nato diri sa illustration, mao ni ang iyahang initial position. This is our SI. Then, ang iyahang final position is that is during the time na 3.5 seconds. So that would be your SF. So this is your delta S na atong i-consider. So that would be equal to 6.125. Okay, kung kalawon nato sa figure or sa illustration natong gi-draw. Pero here, pwede lang nimo i-substitute ang values. The final position was 6.125 meters minus the initial is 0. And ang final time was 3.5 seconds. And the initial time, since it starts from the origin, is also 0. So pila man na to ang average velocity for this one? 1.75. Is it positive or a negative? Di ba positive man na nga to ang na-come up na value? Since positive, unsa may pasabot kung positive ang iyahang value sa tong velocity? Unsang direction for our average velocity nato if it is a positive? To the right. So, for this one, since it is a positive value, the 1.75 meters per second na average velocity has a direction that is going to the right mismo. Okay, so this would be the answer sa to ang average velocity. So for this one, ang direction for the velocity is actually based on your displacement. So nagadepende man na siya kung unsa ang iyahang kung asa siya nag final position. So for this one, since positive man na to na come up, therefore the direction for this one is going to the right. Kung wala pa siya nag-ingon, kung nag-ingon pa siya average speed during the time interval na 2 seconds. So kung 2 seconds ang atong i-consider, ang atong final position will be -4 minus 0, then 2 minus over 2 minus 0. So what happens? Negative ang atong mga ma-come up na velocity, then the direction will be going to the left because ang atong na come up na value or ang sign mismo sa atong velocity here is negative. So the direction for this one is going to the left na mismo. But since during the time interval man ang gi-indicate diri sa atong problem, so the time natong i-consider here is the final time, which is 3.5 seconds. So during that time na 3.5 seconds, ang iyang position at that time is 6.125. So mo na ang iyahang final position. And lastly, sa iyahang average speed, ang difference lang sa average velocity with the average speed is that ang average speed is defined with this equation, that is the total distance traveled, mao na nga itong gisolve kanina, over delta t. So the total distance traveled here is 14.125 meters over the time interval. So that is, again, 3.5 minus 0. Final minus the initial time. So what will be our average speed for this one? 4.04 meters per second. For the average speed, wala na siya direction because speed is only a magnitude, not a vector. Compare sa velocity that it has both magnitude and the direction. Okay? Basta when you talk about velocity, average velocity rather, that is defined with delta S over delta T. And for the average speed is the total distance traveled by the particle over the delta t or the time interval. So that is the difference between the average velocity and the average speed. So kanina problem, like what I've said, it's very important that you draw the motion of the particle using the given functions here sa atong problem. And you notice here that it starts from the origin and it moves to the left first, then it goes to the right na pod. So makita nimo dire or makita nimo ang description sa motion sa imong particle. That's why wala siya koan, wala siya illustration or figure na gihatag, need jud nimo siya i-illustrate. Eh, kung napay illustration pa ni or figure na gihatag sa problem, nakabalutan na it moves to the right ang atong kuan. So, di na, wala na tayo need na mag-kuan, establish o coordinate system. So, atong sa first three example problems na itong gisolve last time, kay na may mga image adto or figure, so mas dali to sila or kanang dali na nato ma-identify asa nag-move ang atong particle, and then we can proceed on choosing unsa na kinematic equation atong gamiton or solving the problem. Kani kay wala may figure, so kailangan nato i-illustrate.